How to Stay Invisible, Chapter 12. The following day, Rosie's paw was swollen to the size of an orange, and she didn't protest when Raymond pulled himself out of the sleeping bag, trying to ease around her. He pulled a can of shredded chicken from the back of the hollow. He had found it on a particularly good scavenging day and was saving it for a special occasion. He felt Rosie needed it now more than ever. And then, realizing that his fishing gear that held the small knife that he used to open cans was in the woods by the river, he threw the can out of the hollow's opening and into the snow. The coyote jumped to avoid it. "You!" Raymond yelled. "You get out of here!" He jumped from the tree. He instantly wished he had put on his shoes. "Get out of here!" he yelled again, but the coyote just looked at him. "You hurt her! You hurt her, and now she can't even walk! What are we going to do now, huh? What are we going to do?" He flung his hands into the snow, wildly throwing handfuls toward the animal. The coyote stretched his legs in front of him and lay down. Raymond stared at him, trying to catch his breath. He needed to get back to the river and get his fishing gear, but he wasn't about to leave Rosie there alone with the coyote lurking around their camp. Friendly as he seemed, Raymond didn't trust the animal. He grabbed a dry pair of socks and his tennis shoes, still damp from the day before. Then, eyeing the coyote, he climbed back into the hollow to gather Rosie up. "Come on," he whispered. "We have to go back and get the knife." Rosie arched away, laying her head back on the sleeping bag. Raymond screamed and punched the inside of the tree, crying out in pain. He slumped against the hollow. His stomach groaned. He pulled a pack of crackers from his stash and offered Rosie a square. She licked it and then laid her head down, uninterested. Raymond forced himself to eat the remaining crackers, looking from Rosie to the coyote. Then he pulled himself back out of the hollow and began building a fire. The coyote watched as he stacked the sticks using 2 bigger logs at the base. He had gotten good at catching the spark of the gum wrapper with dry leaves and lit the fire on the first try. After a while, it was steady enough to add wet sticks, drying them out until they too burned down. Using wet sticks created more smoke, but Raymond didn't have a choice. He perched himself on a log and removed his damp shoes, letting the fire dry them out. The coyote stuck around all day, watching Raymond put putter about the camp and pack Rosie's paw in snow. The paw wasn't getting any better, but it also didn't look any worse. Raymond was quietly thankful for that. Rosie kept trying to lick the wound, and Raymond ran back and forth from the fire to the hollow, pulling her away from it. At dusk, the coyote stretched and rose. Without so much as a look back, he trotted from the camp and into the woods. "Jerk," Raymond muttered, watching him go. There was no sign of the coyote the following morning, so Raymond ran as fast as he could to the spot in the woods where his fishing gear lay strewn across the earth. He gathered it up and raced back to the hollow. He found the small can of chicken and opened it. His mouth watered. He hadn't eaten in almost a whole day, but he offered the entire thing to Rosie. After a few minutes of prodding, she finally ate it. Raymond sat beside her, eating another chocolate bar. He brushed his teeth in the creek and splashed water on his face, shuddering from the cold. Bathing was out of the question. Rosie's licking had given way to gnawing. Raymond examined the wound. The entire top of her paw was licked clean of fur, and it had a bright pink rawness to it that made Raymond recoil. The cut had grown in size and started to ooze yellow pus that Raymond couldn't remove no matter how he tried to clean it. "Quit it, Rosie," he pleaded as she gnawed at the wound. He tried to make her lie back so he could rub her belly, but she just leaned up and kept on chewing. At the children's home, there had been a boy who cut his foot on the rusty shower drain. He didn't tell anyone about it and tried to bandage the cut himself. Raymond remembered seeing the cut in the bathroom one morning. It looked like Rosie's did now. The boy had woken up a few nights later, screaming. An ambulance took him away, and the children's home guardians never told them what happened to the boy. But they did have people come and replace all the shower drains. Raymond slept uneasily that night and woke the next morning wet with sweat. He propped himself up on his elbow. Rosie was burning up. Her paw was red and swollen, and the yellow ooze was now a sickening green color. Raymond laid his head on his dog's chest. He didn't have a choice. He would have to try to find some help. He took a t-shirt from his duffel bag and ripped the sleeve, tying it around Rosie's paw. He dressed in his warmest clothes and carefully gathered her in his arms. He took a deep breath and began the long walk into town. It was mid-morning when they reached town, and Raymond was exhausted, eager to find help. He had kept moving in the woods, stopping only to readjust his grip on Rosie. Not a single car passed him on the country road that led to downtown. He stood at a cross street holding Rosie. The town seemed totally dead. He passed a gas station and a few fast food restaurants, all closed. When he made it to the Shop and Save grocery store, there was a car in the parking lot, but it appeared to be broken down, piled with snow that the sun had not yet melted away. Raymond continued along the road, desperate to see someone, anyone who could offer help. He walked through the deserted town square, past the empty town hall and the closed shop. A car turned the corner. He tried to wave it down, still cradling Rosie in his arms, but it kept moving without slowing. He kept walking until he reached the edge of town where the shops stopped and the houses began. He stopped at a small house on the corner. He could see the TV inside and thought about what he would say if he knocked and someone came to the door. "Hello, I've been living in the woods and my dog is hurt. Can you help us?" He sighed and resolved that he had to at least try. He was just about to push through the small gate when a car pulled up behind him. "Hey, kid," the driver said. It was the man from the river. Raymond recognized his white beard and old baseball hat. "What are you doing out here?" My dog is hurt. She needs help and everywhere's closed." The man hesitated. Then he barked, "Get in." Raymond thought about all the lessons he had learned as a child about not getting into cars with strangers. Rosie licked his ear. He was out of options. Raymond pulled open the door to the back seat and lay Rosie down. Then he got in the front. "Buckle your seatbelt," the man said, his voice gruff and scratchy. Raymond buckled up. The car was clean, despite its age, and had the faint smell of rain and pipe tobacco. "What are you doing walking the streets?" the man asked. "Do your parents know you're out like this?" Raymond was prepared for the question. "They're on vacation," he said. "We were going fishing at the river and my dog got hurt." The man was silent for a moment, watching the road ahead of him. "By the smell of it, that wound has been festering for at least a few days." Raymond glanced back at Rosie, and fear crept over him. "My folks are away and I didn't know what to do. I tried to clean it, but..." "It's infected," the man cut in. "Yeah, I guess so," said Raymond. "Can we take her somewhere?" "Not today. Everything's closed for Christmas." Raymond didn't say anything. He hadn't realized that it was Christmas Day. He thought of Rosie and looked ahead. He was grateful for the man's silence as he turned around and drove back into the country. He turned off the main road and onto a side street. Raymond recognized the road that he had just walked town on and knew he had passed by there earlier that morning. They turned again and drove down a long dirt road until they reached a small cabin. "Let's get her inside," the man said, taking the keys from the ignition. He climbed out of the car. Raymond did the same, and the man was already halfway in the back, pulling Rosie gently out. He carried her up the small steps to the porch, and Raymond followed. "Get the door," he ordered, and Raymond obeyed, following him into the warm cabin. Like the car, the cabin was clean, but had the feeling of being lived in. There was an old couch and an armchair in the living room, arranged neatly around a wood-burning fireplace. Off the living room was a small kitchen. The man shoved a newspaper from the kitchen table and laid Rosie down. Raymond watched as he removed the torn bit of t-shirt and inspected the wound. Without a word, he opened a cupboard and pulled out a few bottles and a mesh bag. He laid them on the table next to Rosie. "It'll take some doing," he said finally, "but I think we should be able to save the leg." "Save the..." Raymond broke off, horrified. "You mean she could lose her leg?" "The leg is the least of her worries if we can't get this infection controlled. How long has she been running a fever?" "Since this morning," Raymond choked out. "Please, please help her." The man grunted. "Oh, hold her down," he said, directing Raymond to stand on the other side of the table. He filled a syringe, and while Raymond pressed himself into his dog, the man pushed the liquid into her leg. Raymond could feel Rosie relax beneath him, and he began to panic. "Is she?" he cried. "No, just put out." The man began the busy work of cleaning and tending the wound. When he started to cut away at the rotting flesh, Raymond felt his stomach turn. "If you're going to be sick, do it in the bathroom down the hall." Raymond nodded and, clutching his stomach, ran from the room. When he made it to the bathroom, he heaved a few times before slumping to the floor. He hadn't eaten, and there wasn't anything in his stomach to throw up. It writhed and clenched in protest. Raymond took a few deep breaths and steadied himself. He stood and turned on the faucet at the sink, splashing water onto his face. Then he bent and took a few small sips. He walked back down the hall slowly, his head reeling. He studied the framed picture on the wall, trying to focus. There were a few of a young boy, a school picture, and one where he was older and in an army uniform. There was a picture of a young man who had to be the man from the river, standing in a boat with the boy, smiling and holding a huge fish. The house was quiet. At the end of the hall, there was a framed medal with a ribbon attached and under an inscription that read, "The Medal of Honor, awarded to Jacob Robert Castiglione." "You gonna hang around all day, or you gonna come and help me?" the man called from the kitchen, making Raymond jump. "Sorry," Raymond said, walking back into the room. "What can I do?" "Open that cupboard above the sink and get out the wooden box." Raymond did as he was told, bringing the small box to the table. The man opened it, and Raymond watched as he rifled through the small instruments until he found what he was looking for. "She'll make it," the man said. He glanced up at Raymond, who was still a bit shaky and green around the edges. "What's your name, kid?" "Raymond Hurley." "Well, Raymond Hurley, I found you just in time. Any longer, and we might be having a different talk entirely." Raymond gripped the back of the chair for support. Then he sat down and stroked Rosie's fur. He couldn't lose Rosie. Not Rosie. "How do you know how to do all this?" he asked. The man was quiet for a few seconds and then said, "I was a surgeon once. Dogs aren't that different from humans, that you'll want to get her checked out by a vet all the same when we're done here." "Yes, sir," Raymond said. "Sir is for soldiers, and there hasn't been me for a long time. The name's Jacob, but you can call me Stiggs." Stiggs glanced up at Raymond and then back down at Rosie. "You look like you haven't slept in days, kid. There's an extra bedroom back there. Go on and rest. We're going to be here for a while." Raymond looked at his sleeping dog. She looked so peaceful, like she might just be napping instead of undergoing kitchen surgery. Stiggs was right. Raymond hadn't slept well in days. He hesitated, not wanting to leave Rosie and not sure if he should trust this man. Experience told him most people could not be trusted. But there was something about this house, about Stiggs, and the gentle way he handled Rosie that felt comforting to Raymond. He could already feel himself relax a little just being there, despite Rosie's condition. "Go on," Stiggs encouraged. "She'll be okay. I'll wake you if she needs you." Raymond nodded. He found the spare bedroom easily enough. It was a small cabin, and there weren't many rooms. He looked longingly at the double bed, but wondered how he would be able to rest with Rosie out there sick. But as soon as his head hit the pillow, he fell asleep. When he woke up, it took him a minute to remember where he was. Thinking of Rosie, he sat up in bed and instantly regretted it. Oh, his stomach was tender from retching and hunger, and his head spun. He swung his feet to the floor and steadied himself before pushing off the bed and going to find Rosie. A fire was burning in the living room, and the kitchen was empty. Raymond panicked, looking for any sign of his dog. Stiggs came through the front door, carrying an armful of wood. "Where is she?" Raymond half screamed. "She's just there at the end of the couch," Stiggs said calmly. Rosie lay on the square cushion. She didn't raise her head, but her tail wagged at the sound of Raymond's voice. Her fur was the same color as the couch, and he hadn't noticed her lying there. "Hey, girl," he said as he knelt beside her. "You're all right now." He stroked her fur. "Had to give her a little something for the pain. She got sick when she woke up. She'll be a little out of it for a few hours." Only then did Raymond notice that it was dark. "How long was I sleeping?" he asked. "Long time," said Stiggs. "All day." Raymond didn't know what to say. I guess we will get out of your hair. Thank you, sir." Stiggs flinched at the word sir and shook his head. "It's Stiggs," he said. "You can't move that dog tonight. Maybe not even tomorrow. I've got a phone if you need to call your folks, but you better just leave her here with me for now." "Oh," said Raymond. "Okay." He made no move to get the phone. Stiggs looked at Raymond. "So, your folks are out of town, you said?" Raymond nodded. "Any chance they'll be back before tomorrow?" Raymond shook his head. "Right. Well, I better guess they won't miss you then if you stay here tonight. Dinner's almost ready anyhow." Raymond's stomach groaned in response. It had been days since he had eaten properly. "Help me set the table," Stiggs said. Raymond helped Stiggs set out the plates and utensils. Stiggs served him a large portion of beef stew. Raymond was already shoveling it in his mouth before Stiggs sat down. "Good Lord, boy, when's the last time you ate?" Sorry," Raymond muttered with his mouth full. He tried to slow down. The stew had big chunks of tender meat and soft potatoes, and Raymond thought it tasted like heaven itself. He ate 3 servings and half a loaf of bread before setting his spoon down. He looked over at Rosie, who was still sleeping on the couch. "Better not give her anything heavy tonight," said Stiggs, still eating his meal. "But you can offer her a little broth if she'll take it." Raymond spooned some of the liquid into his bowl and walked it over to Rosie. She raised her head and sniffed. Raymond rubbed her ears, and she lapped up the broth and licked his hand before lying back down. Raymond's eyes watered. He had almost lost her. He gathered himself and stood, carrying the bowl back to the kitchen to set it in the sink. "Tell me, Raymond," Stiggs said, taking another bite, "what kind of kid doesn't know it's Christmas Day?" Raymond tensed. He knew he had to be careful how he answered. What could he say? The kind of kid whose parents left him? The kind of kid who lives in a tree hollow in the woods? The kind of kid who has more important things to worry about than some dumb holiday? Must have just slipped my mind. Stiggs didn't look convinced, but he didn't push the topic. "You're not from around here, are you?" "No, sir," said Raymond, and the old man flinched again. "Call me a Stiggs," he said. "I didn't think so. I've lived here most of my life and know pretty much everybody around here there is to know, which isn't saying much. We, My folks and we move around a lot. I just started at River Mill Middle this year. Stiggs nodded, and his eyebrows creased like he was remembering something he would rather not. You live here alone? Raymond asked, trying to change the subject. Stiggs nodded. Have for a while now. The boy in the pictures, is he your son? Raymond asked. Stiggs set his spoon down. He was, yes. Oh, Raymond wished he hadn't asked. I'm sorry. Stiggs stood and began clearing the table. Here, said Raymond, grabbing the stew pot. Let me. It was the least he could do. Stiggs grunted and walked out of the kitchen, leaving Raymond to clean the dishes and put away the leftovers. Stiggs prodded the fire and added a few logs. Then he sat on the couch next to Rosie and stroked her fur. When Raymond was finished in the kitchen, he joined him, sitting down in the armchair. He relished the warmth of the fire. He was thankful that he didn't have to go back to the woods, at least for tonight. It was silent for a long time as they watched the flames lick the inside of the fireplace. Finally, Stiggs stood up. I'll move her into the spare room so she can sleep with you if you'd like. I can carry her, Raymond offered, but Stiggs was already lifting Rosie gently from the couch. Raymond followed them down the hall. Stiggs gently laid Rosie at the foot of the spare bed. If she wakes in the night and gets sick, just holler for me. Raymond nodded. Thank you, he said. Stiggs just grunted and shut the door behind him, leaving Raymond and Rosie alone in the small room. Rosie's tail was wagging. She was more alert than before, and Raymond gently moved her to the top of the bed and crawled in beside her, careful not to jostle her bandaged leg. Raymond lay awake into the night, petting Rosie and wondering how he'd got there. He studied the pictures on the walls of the small room and the cracks in the ceiling. Stiggs seemed like a nice man, but could he really trust him? He had the urge to get up and leave right back then, go back to the hollow. He propped himself up and Rosie licked his arm. Raymond remembered that he couldn't move her. The first Christmas that Raymond could remember was the one when he was 6. His parents had been invited on some ski trip and hadn't brought him. He had woken up on Christmas morning after 2 days alone. He had eaten all of the bologna and cheese that his parents had left him in the days prior, and he was hungry. He filled a pot with water, pushed a chair to the stove, and cooked a packet of ramen noodles. He didn't know to wait for the water to boil, and he dumped the contents in and waited. He remembered burning his tongue on the first bite and then not being able to taste the next. It was the first meal he had ever cooked for himself. Raymond tried to relax now. He laid his head on the pillow. Rosie was already asleep again, softly snoring. I guess you trust Stiggs, huh? Whispered Raymond. When she didn't answer, he said, Merry Christmas, Rosie, and lay awake, staring at the ceiling.